boundaries, and welcome to another episode of Keys to Your Best Life and a special series with my sister, Latan Murphy. And we are calling this She Rises Up because we believe that ladies are out there and they're dealing with all these things that all the things that women deal with. But today we're going to talk about the exhausted yes. And what does that look like? What does it mean to have an exhausted yes? It usually comes from a lack of boundaries. So today we're learning to protect our peace without losing our faith or losing relationships or losing our minds. So welcome to the broadcast. And Latan, boundaries. This is a serious thing, right? And as women, we want to please people. We want to do everything. We get excited, but do boundaries get us in trouble if we do not have them in place?
They do get us in trouble if we don't have them in place. And I think so many times there's so much to this topic because we can align ourselves with the wrong people and forgo aligning ourselves with the right people. I was just in conversation with a sister today who is struggling, and she realized that she had aligned herself with some wrong people. And so if we do that, we can't have the end result that we want and produce what God has in mind for us.
So good. So good.
Yeah.
And so important. So important. So there, the problem with it is the not being able to say no. And so I'm just going to describe a woman, and then you tell me whether or not you have seen women or women have expressed this to you. Okay. She's tired.
Yeah.
Not because she doesn't love, right? Because she's been saying yes to everything. And I've been there. Okay. I've been there because
me too.
Serve everybody. The exhaustion of yes and coming into that agreement is from an obligation of fear or guilt, or rather than genuine calling and joy. Okay. So here's some quick signs of what it is to have an exhausted yes. Okay. You resent things. It builds up. Okay. I can remember I would get so frustrated because I wanted to minister the word of the Lord and encouragement to women, but I would get so burnt out and worn out.
For sure.
And then chronic exhaustion. Okay. And feeling invisible or taken for granted because you just give and give and give, and difficulty identifying what we really want, because we are so focused on others' needs and saying yes with our mouth, but whenever everything in us and our body is screaming to say no. And apologizing for having needs. Many times women think that they have to have some excuse. No, ladies, it's a spiritual word. Okay.
And feel guilty if they say no. Yeah.
Pardon me?
And they feel guilty if they say no.
Correct. So what do you think causes this people pleasing that gets on us? Where does that come from?
It's funny because I was in conversation with another friend about this, and we were talking about how the younger millennials don't struggle with this as much as we do.
Right.
I think that we realized as moms what had happened to us, and we tried really, really hard to not produce that same kind of scenario in our daughters. And I know I did. I tried really, really hard not to make her feel guilty if she didn't feel like that was for her. Like, let's say singing. Like, I think when you're a mom, you have to try new things with your kids and try to see if that's a gift that they might have that God could use. And I remember, because I love to sing, having her sing with me in church. Well, her little expression, and I realized it wasn't something that she enjoyed, and it wasn't something she wanted to do, but it was hard for her to say no. It weighed hard on her heart to say no to me. And I remember recognizing that, and I could have made it so that she would have felt real guilt from it and said yes. And then it could have created this whole system of her throughout her life, saying yes to things that she really didn't want to do, nor was she called to do. We use that word call in the Christian community. If you're listening in, what I mean by that is your gift. Like, you have a gift, we have gifts. Maggie and I, some of those we're still discovering, and but you have gifts that you maybe haven't even discovered yet. And when it's a true gift of yours, you're willing to say yes, and then there's life that happens. There's life-giving properties that rise up inside of you as your gift is activated, as you put your yes on the table and you express it, whether it's singing or dancing or writing or decorating or baking or helping others dress or helping people organize their homes. Or we could think of it so many different things. Or maybe your gift is teaching. Maybe you're a teacher and you teach young children. Oh, what a powerful job that is. But if you had said yes to everything, or someone in your life made you feel the guilt and shame of feeling as if you said no, I think that was the case for some of us older girls, is we thought we need to say yes because it's a good thing to do.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
a lot of times the desire for people pleasing comes from that fond state of trauma from our childhood, because we
Yeah.
just want everybody to be happy. We want to keep the peace, you know.
Yes.
I want you to like me, all of
Yes.
those things. And so
Yes.
the roots of people pleasing and lack of boundaries comes from fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of self-worth. Like, you know, my value is what I am, what
Mhm.
I do, instead of who I
Yes.
am. And sometimes in the church, religious pressure, and then it becomes survival, like you said, from our childhood, survival
Yeah.
mechanisms. I know when I first
Exactly.
became a Christian, I was so broken. I had so many things, but I got caught in a cycle of, oh, I gotta do, I gotta do, instead of being. And so we
Oh,
are
yeah.
human beings. We are not humans doing.
Yes.
Okay. But I was in the nursery and I was doing all of the outreach and all of the things. And those busy activities, though they were good, okay, was a result of me trying to please God or please people. And that lack of boundaries took longer for me to get my healing, because I needed to be sitting at the altar on my face, crying those tears and working through those
Oh.
things, rather than being out doing. And so, do you think that as women, we do that?
Oh, yeah, I do. And in fact, I can look back and think of things that I put my hand and heart to, that I've said to the Lord, how much fruit was there in that? Was there any? Was there any kingdom fruit in what I did back then and how I spent my time on those things? And the thing we can do is there's regrets on every turn. We don't want to let the enemy fill us with regret as we're trying to pursue this topic. You see
Yeah.
how sly he is. But we can look back to our past. And I'm a firm believer that he makes all things good as long as our hearts were in it the
Yes.
best of our ability. It was a right reason at the time that we said yes back then. There was a right reason inside of our heads and our hearts based on who we were at that season of life. But today's a new day. And today, the wisdom is we get to learn from yesterday, and we get to, instead of living in regret, we can live in the joy and excitement for doing the things that really bring God the most glory. And
Yes.
sometimes that's for us to rest. Sometimes
Amen.
it's for us to sit in the quiet with him and listen. Learn how to listen instead of talking all the time and filling the airspace with our words. I think we're living in a time, Maggie, where that's more important than ever, that we don't let our lives be based on action so much as on, like you said so well, being, and being in his presence and learning how to cultivate intimacy in a new and fresh way with him so that we can discover something new about him, and we can begin to move in the direction that he has for us. And maybe it's going to be less doing and more being, like you said, for us.
I believe that. That was such a hard thing for me to do, because my husband says I have one speed and it's fast, and I'm always doing, and I've
Yeah.
got a mouth, right? But sometimes my mouth overrides and I need to just go, and because God gave me two ears and one mouth,
Hmm.
two ears, and that's to listen. And it
Hmm.
took me a long time to be still. And I would
Hmm.
constantly be getting this word, yeah, be still and know that I am God. But you know, something that I find very powerful is that Jesus was surrounded by needs all around him, everybody pulling him every which way. But it still says in Luke that he often withdrew to pray and to be
Yeah.
alone. And so, even with all of that going on, he knew that the fellowship with the Father, the being at the peace, and so forth. So, even if the Son of God needed to protect his time and energy,
Yeah.
yeah, we're not failing if we need the same. Okay. And so, withdrawing from a bunch of busyness or activities
Hmm.
is it's how we stay close to the Father, like you said, the intimacy piece. And I heard an analogy one time about the word busy, and I was like, ooh, because people ask me, and I still have to watch my words because the power of life and death is in the tongue. We got to be careful what we speak. And people say, how are you? And I'm like, I'm busy. Well, someone gave me an acronym about busy one time, and I'm like, I don't ever want to be busy again. It says being under Satan's yoke. Ouch.
I couldn't hear you. Your speaker, your microphone was kind of cutting out. Is
Oh
be
no.
under Satan's.
Yoke.
Oh,
Busy.
there you are. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
Being under Satan's yoke. And I'm like, I don't want to be busy anymore. So,
No. But you know what, though? I have to confess that I like being busy. I feel my best self being busy and having things to do. But there's a difference, isn't there, in being busy just to feel some empty void within us
yes,
than being busy about what God designed you to be.
it's a big
Does that
difference.
make sense at all to
It's a
you,
huge
Maggie?
difference.
And so I
Yes,
don't think we need to beat ourselves up. I think God wired you to be busy, and you are able with that to affect a lot of lives. And He gave you a voice, and He filled you with a lot of wisdom, a lot of godly wisdom. And I think that it's I think for those of us who've wasted our time into certain places, we feel like we got to
yeah,
hurry up and redeem it all and get as much in for the goodness of God as we can. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as we are taking times to rest. Now, in the beginning, when we were talking about boundaries, and there's so many different layers to boundaries, there's the boundaries of like cutting people off is not a boundary. That's putting a gate up when you say, you are out of my life because I don't like the way you make me feel. I don't like the way you speak to me. I don't like the way. I think there are times in our life when we have to set boundaries with people like that, and
that's
that's
huge.
healthy. But there are times that the boundaries that we want to set are the people that we want to cut out. Sometimes it can be a family member that hurt you deeply, but they're family. And so with that, I think it's important to sometimes people have to cut their family members out of their life. But I think there's wisdom in saying to the Lord, like, what have I to learn through this criticism?
Right.
What in me is truthful in what they said? What in me do you see that needs correction? That I need, instead of saying I'm putting a high gate and closing the door on this person, what do I have to learn from this person?
That's
And
so good.
and yeah, and what element of their criticism is really true? And I'm
Right.
blindsided by it, and I don't want to see it. And so I'm saying I'm drawing a boundary. Um, we see nowadays kids are cutting their parents off.
Oh,
Kids go to college and it's like an epidemic. They're saying, I don't want anything to do with my parents. I don't want anything to do with my family. That is not from the Lord. I can tell you that. God is all about family. He loves the family unit. He wants us to be in healthy harmony with our family members, if at all possible. He wants us to love them and serve them and learn from each other's flaws and be able to grow. And with that said, there are times that we also have to draw healthy boundaries and speak the truth that is real truth according to God's word, not just a truth that is based on our desire to be right over being righteous.
that's good. That's really good. Well, I will say this, and we'll go back to the boundary piece. I want to go back to the busyness real quick because I want to clarify and make sure that people understand what I'm talking about busyness. I'm talking about the fleet, flying, the fleet, the we talk about the trauma responses. When we are overly busy, we are running,
Fight or
and
flight.
so there's a difference between being productive. And you were talking about being productive. And when you're being productive, when you're doing what God has called you to do, operating in that, but busyness just so you don't have to feel is a complete different thing. So when we switch that over to our relationships, right? And so we're forced to be in relationships. And I agree with you 100% on everything you said, because I see it. I've even got a client, which heartbreaking, what kind of person keeps their kids from being in relationship with their grandparents whenever it's healthy? And the Bible does tell us to be at peace with all people when we can, right?
Mhm.
But the reality is we do have an epidemic of it's cancel culture is what it is. And it's like, we're just going to cancel you because you said something I don't like. Whether it's true or not, I don't like it.
Mhm.
And then we've got an epidemic of people cutting people off because of their political beliefs or their religious views. And these are things where we have to really say, what is going on here? That is not boundaries. That is cruelty.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
is cruelty. Boundaries is setting up a fence, okay, and
Mhm.
saying, here's the line, and this is my personal boundary. And when you step over it, it violates me. And communication comes with healthy boundaries. I use with my girls, all of my girls will tell you this. I believe that relationships are like the auditorium. And you've got your front row people, and your front row people know everything about you, and they're safe, and they're not going to take and use your flaws to hurt you, right? And then you got your people in the next section that know a whole lot about you, but they don't know everything that the front row people have. And then you got your people in the balcony. And these are the
Yeah.
people that maybe you work with or you go to school with, church, whatever. And they are there. They know a lot about you, but they don't know you like the front row people or the people on the floor. And then there's the parking lot people. Okay, boundaries are when people have repeatedly
Yeah.
violated you and are harmful to you and they're toxic.
Mhm.
They go into the parking lot, right? And some
They're
of them
they're
may be
going
so
they're going
toxic.
to the south side of the parking lot.
Well, there's some that are so toxic that they're evicted from the property. They're not
Right.
even allowed in the
They're
parking
not
lot.
in on the property. Yeah.
Because
Yep.
boundaries are meant to protect,
Yep.
okay, and to grow. And so do you think that sometimes that people say yes when they should say no from a lack of boundaries, or do you think that they're just not aware that a boundary needs to be set?
Well, I love that you're pairing busyness and boundaries together, because I've never heard this conversation together before in this way. And I think it's so important, because we can be so busy that we don't even realize that we are busy connecting ourselves to, like we said earlier, the wrong people, the wrong places, the wrong
Right?
scenarios, the wrong gifts. And
Yeah.
we don't even know that it's okay to set healthy boundaries, because we are moving in such a way that's so fast paced. And then we bring all the stuff home that we gather to ourselves from that busyness, and we are become critical and spewing it up within our home to our husband or our families or our children. It spills over, you guys. Women, we know what we're talking about here. So we really need to talk about this, because we need to evaluate the things that we've been busy doing and being, and then evaluate the people who are connected to that busyness.
Yes.
Who are they? Who are these people that are making us feel like we can't say no? And we've fallen into that, and we don't even know how to have a healthy boundary, because we are so busy that we think if we don't think about it, like Maggie said, and just keep moving. Oh, that's a good thing. So I just keep moving, that everything will smooth out. Well, it doesn't always smooth out, because the
Right.
bottom line is there are some very toxic people in each of our lives,
Sure.
that if we don't draw a boundary, their toxicity becomes ours, because that toxic ability of theirs can get in our head and our heart and create so much frustration that we come home, and instead of just being busy without boundaries, we become little busy bodies, and our mouths begin to tell all the things we're irritated about sister so and so,
Mhm.
and what they did, and I can't believe this and I can't believe that. And our poor guys, honestly, like, they just want to have peace. They want to, they, if your husband's a peaceful man, and I hope you are living with a peaceful man. If you're not, we can pray about that with you too. Reach out to us. But you understand what I mean, Maggie, is this is a really layered conversation. but we've never discussed it in this way. And I love it because I think we want to be busy and not think about the things that we need to be healthy in, like
Yep.
drawing a boundary where it needs to be drawn. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and even good stuff, even good stuff. I mean,
Oh,
there could be the
boy,
toxic stuff. We know that we
especially good.
really said that. But just because it's good doesn't mean it's God's timing, and it doesn't mean it's your calling. Because if you do something God has called someone else to do, you're taking away that opportunity. And so some of the things that have helped me, because I just had to do this yesterday, and I was so sad because I love one of my sisters called and asked me if I could be at this TV studio on a certain date at a certain time and help them with floor production and stuff like that. But I had to say no because I've already said yes to something else. And so finding ways to communicate that is, we don't have to always have an explanation, but we can let people know, look, I really care about what you're doing, but I can't give it my full heart, or I can't, I have to say no because I've already said yes, and let them find the right person to do it. But it doesn't all count. Sometimes we have this idea that it all rises with us, we have to, oh, what's going to happen if I say no? And so I want to give you a few ladies some boundaries for this week or some steps. Audit your yeses. And when I say audit your yeses, and Latan, you hit on this, I think, in our last episode where we were talking about what is life-giving, what is fruitful, and what is draining. If you were doing things draining you, those are the things you need to evaluate, really, and be honest. And then step 2 is to identify the fear. And where's that fear coming from? Name it, bring it to God. That's always our step. We're always bringing it to God. And number 3, practice one small no. Start with low things, so things that are not real big, and then build a muscle using that for the peaceful no. And the first time it may be hard because we do want to help and we are compassionate. And yes, we can probably do what they're asking us to do, but that doesn't mean that God's calling us to do that. So the key for this episode is it's not rejection of the person, it's protection, right? For the purpose of God placed inside of you. Because if you carry everyone else's yes, you will default on your own calling.
That's right.
So take some time here and talk to the women and minister to them a little bit about how some boundaries can work for them, or maybe some ways they can identify lack of boundaries.
As you were talking, I had a moment of reflection about a time when I was praying about some things I was to put myself to, as far as like on my calendar. And I assigned myself to saying yes to speaking to this group of ladies. But as I put my yes on the table and sent the contract, inside of me, the Holy Spirit was trying to tell me this was not my platform, that I was not to be there. But because it felt like a good thing, and I had already committed to it, already sent the contract, signed it, I felt a responsibility to go ahead and follow through with that. And as I took my position on the platform, Maggie, again, the Holy Spirit said, this is not your territory.
Wow.
And I could feel the weight of the fruitlessness in that event in a way that marked my heart in asking the Lord from that day forward, to the best of my ability, I try to bring everything that's brought to me as an opportunity to the Lord and sit in it for a minute with him and ask, is this my assignment? Do I have your blessing on this? Or is this a busyness that I'm trying to step into when you're trying to help me draw a boundary?
Yeah, that's really good. And you probably felt that resistance in the spirit.
I
Because
did.
the person that they should have asked and that was called to be there on that date, that time, to minister to those people,
Yep.
not they know. And so we do a disservice when we're saying yes, yes, yes. And so, the Bible says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. So it wouldn't say that if we had to say yes to everything.
That's right.
No is a spiritual word. And like I said before, it can be a full statement, a period right after it. But
it can.
Have to do things. I love, when John Maxwell talks about the sandwich method, we need to do things proper because we don't want people to feel like, because so many people are caught up with rejection that if you say no, they feel like you're saying no to them. They take it personal. And so it's always good to give them those ways like, well, I'll pray about it, and then don't just say you'll pray about it knowing that you're going to say no, and go to the Lord and make
Mhm.
sure that your no is supposed to be a no,
Mhm.
or your yes is supposed to be a yes.
Yeah.
So I want to take a few minutes here and tell you ladies, there is some remarkable content available to you on both of our platforms. But I want to
Mhm.
talk real quick here, Latan. I haven't had a chance to talk to you about this, but I want you to talk for just take a couple moments and talk about the books that you have written, because I believe there's some women watching today that there's some nuggets of truth in those books that'll bring it forth. So talk a little bit about your writings.
Well, the two recent books, I think, tie in really well with the messages of your heart, and especially the messages of this show that you're wanting to do about She Rises Up, and all the different specific topics that you and I have had privilege to discuss in the last 4 episodes here. The first one is Courageous Women of the Bible, Overcoming Fear and Insecurity for a Life of Confidence and Freedom.
Yeah.
And you can find that on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and most of the channels. Also, His Strength, Her Joy, Finding God Powered Fulfillment. So I feel like both of those two books would be the ones I would want to mention today because they fit very well with your heart and these shows that you're hoping women will be able to grow in the Lord through. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really good. And I knew that. I was thinking of reflecting back on things that I had read out of your book, and I was like, man, this is just right in the same line. So, ladies, you can find that where
In
you
your
can
heart.
find all the books, and I encourage you to check it out. And for those of you that are watching this on YouTube, you can look in the show notes for contact information. But if you're listening to this on a one of the podcast platforms, I want to tell you that Latan's website is Latan. Go ahead and tell them your website here.
It's latanmurphy.com.
That's so
So,
simple. You can't
yes,
miss it. And is that
yeah,
across the board on all social media platforms as well?
right. Latan Murphy. Yep.
Okay.
I
So
look
you
forward to
can go.
hearing from you guys. It would be our honor to pray for y'all.
Yes, absolutely. And do share this with those that you know that are in need of an encouraging word. And we're not coming to you today that we know it all. These are things we go through too. Okay.
Oh
And
boy.
so God uses all of our stuff, every morsel. He doesn't waste anything. And so
Yeah.
if you want to know more about the things that I do, it's movingforwardministriestn.org or .com. And the YouTube channel, you'll find this. I'm going to attach her YouTube to this as well. So you'll be able to find it on Latan's YouTube, which is Latan Murphy. And then also Moving Forward Media. And we would love it if you would go to those platforms, like, subscribe, comment, share, all of that good stuff, because it helps us to help more people. We know that there are women out there struggling with these areas because we went through it, and we still have to stand against it. We have to recognize it. So we appreciate you all for watching today. Any final words, Latan? We're just about out of time.
I would just say to ask the Lord in your prayer time today to be the boundary line of your life, that
Mm.
He would be the boundary line of your life, and that He would teach you where to put your yes and where to put your no, and how to have peace inside of you, knowing that you're walking exactly according to His will and His purpose.
So good. And I just want to also mention very quickly, one of my most recommended books over the years has been by Townsend and Cloud,
Mhm.
Boundaries. And they have boundaries in marriage, boundaries with kids, all
Mhm.
so good. There's stuff out there. So we're
Mhm.
thankful. We know you can do a lot with your time, and you spend it with us today. We love you, and we will see you here next time on Keys to Your Best Life, where we have conversations to move you forward. But ladies, rise up, because Jesus is here.